For 3 years, I poured my life into building a boutique architectural firm with my partner, Julian. I was the designer, the artist. My blueprints were lauded, winning us local acclaim and a steady stream of high-end clients. Julian was the face, charismatic, smooth, the guy who could sell a shack as a palace. We agreed from day one, 50-50, in work and in profit. Our biggest project, the one that would put us on the national map, was the redesign of the city's old art museum. It was my masterpiece, a design I'd conceived on a napkin and spent a year perfecting. The complex geometry, the sustainable materials, the way the light would hit the main hall at noon, it was all mine. The night before the final presentation to the city council, Julian called me. "Mate, you're looking stressed. I've got this. I know your design inside and out. Take the night off. Celebrate early. I'll handle the pitch." I trusted him. I was exhausted and, foolishly, I agreed. The next morning, I woke up to a dozen missed calls and a link to a news article. Julian Croft's visionary museum design unanimously approved. My name was nowhere. He hadn't just presented my work, he'd claimed it. When I finally reached him, his voice was cold. "It's just business. I have a better vision for the company's future. A solo vision." He had already filed paperwork to dissolve our partnership and restructure with him as the sole owner, using my design as his founding asset. I was left with nothing. The first few months were a blur of legal notices and despair. My lawyer said the case was difficult. I had trusted him without getting every single preliminary sketch notarized. Julian was already a media darling, the prodigy architect on the cover of design magazines. He was fast-tracking the museum construction, eager to cement his legacy. I was broke, bitter, and couch-surfing. But as I sat one night, staring at a backup copy of the final blueprints on my old laptop, I noticed something. A detail so small, so deeply embedded, that only the creator would know it existed. In my design, the entire building's heating, ventilation, and air conditioning (HVAC) system was interconnected through a central nexus, a maintenance hub located in the sub-basement. To save space and improve efficiency, I designed a unique, custom ducting system. The ducts were made of a specific composite material I'd found from a niche supplier in Germany. They were perfect for airflow, but they had one tiny, secret vulnerability I had noted in my private logs. They were incredibly sensitive to sustained, low-frequency vibrations. At a specific resonance, around 18.8 Hz, the material wouldn't break, but it would become microscopically porous, losing all integrity. It was a one-in-a-million design flaw I was meant to mitigate with custom-built dampeners. Dampeners that I, and only I, had the specifications for. Julian, in his haste to steal my work, had stolen the plans but not the notes. He was building my masterpiece and my ticking time bomb, all at once. Revenge is a dish best served cold, and my plan needed to be frozen solid. Direct sabotage was out of the question. They'd link it back to me in a heartbeat. I needed distance and plausible deniability. I packed my bags and disappeared. I took a low-level drafting job in a different state under a slightly different name, grew a beard, and lived a quiet, unremarkable life. I needed the world, and especially Julian, to forget about ever. For 2 years, I watched it. The museum's construction was a triumph. Julian started it. He won awards, gave TED Talks on the most revolutionary design philosophy, and became the undisputed king of the city's architecture scene. Every article I read, every photo I saw of him smiling in front of the building, was a tear on the front. The museum had a grand opening, an elaborate structure. Critics called it a masterpiece of modern engineering and a building that breathes. This was the key. He had built his reputation, his entire career, on the flawless execution of my design. The higher he climbed, the harder he would fall. I waited until the building had been fully operational for 1 year, its systems and routines unquestioned, its perfection taken for granted. Then I knew it was time to buy a ticket home. My weapon of choice wasn't a bomb or a virus. It was art. The museum, in its second year, opened up applications for its Emerging Artists Installation Program. It was a small, temporary exhibit to be housed in the cavernous sub-basement, the same subbasement that housed the HVAC nexus. I submitted a proposal under a convincing pseudonym, complete with a forged portfolio from a non-existent arts collective. The piece was called Echoes in Silence. The proposal described a sonic sculpture. It consisted of a series of sleek, black monoliths that would be placed at specific points in the subbasement. The official description was pretentious nonsense about exploring the unheard frequencies of urban life. I claimed it would emit a range of subaudible sounds to create a subconscious sense of unease and reflection for the few patrons who ventured downstairs. The museum's art committee, eager to appear edgy and intellectual, loved it. They approved it without a second thought. The monoliths were just housings. Inside the main one, aimed directly at the HVAC nexus 10 feet away, was a custom-built directional low-frequency transducer. A speaker, designed for one purpose, to broadcast a silent, sustained, perfect 18.8 Hz tone. I installed Echoes in Silence myself over 2 days, wearing a wig and a fake mustache, enjoying the irony of being a ghost in my own machine. I set the device on a 6-week timer, giving me ample time to leave the country for a pre-booked vacation. The day it activated, nothing happened. Nothing visible, at least. But deep in the bones of the museum, my silent song began its work. The custom HVAC ducts started to breathe. Microscopically, they became porous. Air, conditioned and humidity-controlled to preserve the priceless art, began to seep out. Humid, unfiltered subbasement air began to seep in. The first sign was a faint, musty smell in the galleries that no one could trace. Then, the climate control systems went haywire, constantly fighting a battle they couldn't win. Condensation, barely perceptible at first, began to form on the walls behind priceless paintings. A rare Monet began to show faint signs of mildew. A centuries-old manuscript on display in the history wing began to warp. The curators were in a panic. They blamed the system, but diagnostics showed everything was working. The building was slowly, silently, destroying its own contents. And Julian, the genius who designed it, had no answers. The situation became a nightmare for Julian. The breathing building was suffocating. The press, which had built him up, now delighted in tearing him down. Genius Architects Museum is $1 million mildew machine, one headline screamed. The city launched a multi-million-dollar investigation. They brought in engineers who were baffled. The systems were running, but the building was failing. They had to close the museum indefinitely, moving the art to secure storage. Julian's reputation was in ruins. He was facing lawsuits from the city and the insurers. The investigators eventually found my art installation, but dismissed it as a harmless, pretentious piece. My sonic weapon was long gone. They finally discovered the porous ducts, concluding it was a catastrophic, unheard-of material failure. The blame fell squarely on the architect who chose it and implemented it without understanding its properties. It was a career-ending, legacy-destroying blunder. Last week, I saw a picture of him online, leaving a courthouse. He looked broken. That night, I opened a bottle of champagne and pulled out that old napkin, the one where I first sketched the museum. His crime was stealing my masterpiece. My revenge was making him sign his name to it.